On today's show, could Thursday night's game with OKC be game of the year part 2? We'll talk about what could look different in that one. Plus, Spencer Davies and I are going to talk about Donovan Mitchell season and should the Cavs think about making a trade as the trade deadline approaches? All that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spencer Davies with me today from Cleveland Cavaliers on SIRG.org and a number of other spots. He does a lot as well that you should be checking out. And we're going to start off today by talking about Thursday night. Cavs taking on OKC again. If you think back to just a week ago yesterday, the Cavs and Thunder played in what was, I think, Spencer, fair to call at this point in the NBA season, the game of the year. And I'm curious from your perspective, because we just saw the Cavs play the Pacers in back-to-back games. And Cavs coach Kenny Atkinson, even before the first Thunder game over a week ago, said this is kind of going to look a little bit maybe sort of like a playoff type series where you can dive a little bit deeper into the opponent. You can make adjustments between games. And I'm just curious, how much do you think we're going to be able to see that when the ball gets tossed up into the air on Thursday night in OKC in terms of like adjustments that can be made?
Well, he kind of foreshadowed it when he told us too about how these are like playoff series. And sometimes there's guys that are out and guys that are, kind of on the sidelines when you have a month in between. Well, we know that Isaiah Hartenstein's not going to be a part of the rematch here coming up on Thursday. Right. So there's immediately an adjustment you're going to have to make because the Thunder are going to have to go small, probably playing Jalen Williams in that 5 spot. I'm sure that they're going to have some wacky kind of lineups out there, maybe Kenrich Williams. Pretty sure that Alex Caruso will be back in the fold, and he was not a part of the first game against the Cavs. So there's that. Cleveland, I think, sticking to using their bigs against that small lineup probably is going to be the way they go unless they're too slow to keep up with Oklahoma City, which it doesn't seem like they've ever had that problem before. So that's already like the first thing I'm thinking about is no Hartenstein in the lineup, seeing how OKC is going to go with a small ball kind of rotation out there and figuring out how they're going to make up for the loss of their big man and still not having Chet Holmgren around. So they have some things to figure out.
Right. Like OKC has not had a game yet this year where both of their centers have been healthy, because you mentioned Hartenstein's going to be out. Chet Holmgren obviously still is out with that hip injury. He hasn't played in, I think it's been like 6 or 8 weeks at this point. It's been a really long time. We should get an update, I would think, sometime soon about his progress, where he's going to be at. But if the Cavs see Chet Holmgren at all on the floor this year, it's going to be in June in the NBA Finals, because these two teams won't see each other after Thursday night the rest of this season. But OKC's not had a game where they've been able to play a true center for 48 minutes of the game, and the Cavs have had very few games where they haven't had the luxury of playing a true center for all 48 minutes, because Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, knock on wood, have been very available this season. They really have not missed much time at all combined. So that is the one advantage that I do think that the Cavs will have just on paper going into this game. And that was a big advantage they had certainly in the rebounding battle last Wednesday when the two teams met in Cleveland. The one thing that I'm looking for, because I do think that we saw Kenny make some good adjustments going from Sunday night's loss against Indiana to Tuesday night's win in Indiana. But I'm kind of looking for in this game, what are they going to be able to do? And I do think in that Pacers game, a lot of the adjustments were defensively. Offensively, they just kind of made more shots. I don't know that they made any strategic adjustments. But what is Kenny going to be able to do in terms of schematics on Thursday night against the Thunder that can maybe help Donovan Mitchell have a better game. Because you think back to last Wednesday, it was, I think it's fair to say, the worst game he's played this season for the Cavs, and they still found a way to win, but he was 3 of 16. I don't anticipate him being that same guy on Thursday night in OKC.
I don't know how many adjustments you can make when Lou Dort's the defender. He's just somebody that has a lot of history with Donovan Mitchell and the way that he defends him. Mike Lucas of Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show did a fantastic breakdown of that on his show. And I think Lou Dort is just one of those guys that's just tough to kind of get by, tough to move his body. Maybe trying to get Donovan off ball a little bit more, but even so, Dort stays pretty attached. But I think just being able to get him in his spots, get him to the corners, get him out in the open floor, I think. And also, Donovan being a playmaker, the playmaker that he is and has been the last couple of years for the Cavs, I think is really important. Just getting eyes on him and making sure that the defense is reacting to Spida so that when he gets guys kind of shrunk in, that he can spray it out and his guys can make shots on the outside, or it can start a swing around the perimeter, and then you can attack closeouts from there. It's just pretty simple from the Cavs end. I don't think they did anything wrong offensively against OKC last week, and right. I don't think that Donovan did much except for miss some shots and really have a hard time of getting any kind of penetration that we're used to seeing from him.
Right. I mean. They scored 129 points in that game against what is far and away the number one defense in the NBA. So it's hard to be like, oh man, they really need to make these offensive adjustments because that's not what it is. But you also have to think, okay, well, if your best player in Donovan Mitchell goes 3 of 16 in that game, you probably have not hit your ceiling as an offense that specific night. Like they could have played better offensively, which is crazy to say, considering, again, they scored 129 points against the number one defense in all of basketball. I do anticipate that Donovan's going to have a better night. Going into that OKC game, I don't know that he was necessarily playing great basketball. And on Tuesday night in Indiana, it was the first time he'd scored 20 points in all of 2025. It was just the third time that he scored 30 points or more since December 1st. Like he's not been the volume scorer that we're used to seeing. And a big part of that too, Spencer, is that the Cavs don't need him to be the volume scorer that he's been in the previous seasons with Cleveland, but I would anticipate him probably having a little bit of a better game. And I do wonder too, if on OKC's side, they look at this and say, well, Darius Garland has kind of been lighting everybody up lately. And I wonder if they want to mix up what they do defensively and put a little bit more attention on him than on Donovan Mitchell.
That's an interesting thought because Darius has been the one who's kind of knifed inside and been able to use his head fakes and his array of dribble moves, the read option play, as I like to call it. He's been outstanding. He has. And in that Indiana game, the way he closed it out for the Cavs, despite kind of having that little knee bump on the floor, just keeping guys off kilter and playing off beat and just so many different methods that he can use to keep guys off balance. Donovan's kind of more your straight line drive, move you, running back style type of guard that can get to the line and all that. Darius has been doing the same, but he just kind of is able to change pace a little better than most people on the floor. So it's just kind of two different styles. But yeah, I think that OKC would try to get the ball out of Darius's hands because he's the top tier playmaker. He's also someone who hasn't been afraid to let it fly from deep this year. And if you get him comfortable in the game for the Cavs, whether it's as a playmaker or as a scorer, then you're probably playing catch up just because he's setting guys up. That means other guys are kind of in their rhythm. You look back at the game against OKC, all the guys not named Donovan Mitchell, you look at how efficient they were. Like you can go down the list. Dean Wade made 3 of 4 threes. You had Jared Allen in the paint going 9 of 11 and 7 of 10 from the free throw line. Evan Mobley, 8 of 13 from the field. Max Strus and Ty Jerome both went 6 of 7 from the floor. Like those are team games because you look at the allocation of the field goal attempts and that not one person just dominated in there. But that's because Darius Garland is helping kind of engineer that and getting the ball moving and also moving off ball himself. So, he just kind of is the one that starts it all up. And if you kind of force Donovan Mitchell to be the primary playmaker, force Karis LeVert or Max Strus to be the primary playmaker, then you're going to have probably a better chance of disrupting something that the Cavs want to do offensively. But, I mean, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen have been playmaking from the pocket really well. So you kind of have to pick your poison when it comes to Cleveland. Don't let Darius get those pocket passes off and have Mobley and Allen try to play make from the nail themselves without getting it in motion or something like that. Like, those are the only things I can really think of that you can do to mess with the Cavs' offensive rhythm.
Right. We will see if OKC can figure out any of that. But there's one more thing that Kenny Atkinson's going to have to figure out on Thursday night, and it's the first time he's going to have to deal with this specific problem. I'll tell you what it is and how I expect him to handle that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. You don't have to wait around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel.com today. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also brought to you by Skims. When I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I was a little confused. I didn't know what to necessarily think, but it was intriguing. And I have since received some of this. I've received Skims underwear from men. And this is not in my script. I'm not reading this off my screen. I'm here to tell you that it is the best underwear that I've ever worn. I've worn a lot of different kinds of underwear in terms of styles, in terms of brand, in terms of materials, and the Skims underwear blows it away. It is the best underwear that I've ever worn. This is, again, not reading off my script here. I can read off my script if you want me to tell you that I've always had issues with underwear. The fit, comfort, just finding the right style for me. I have had those things, but Skims has blown everything out of the water. It has been the best underwear that I've ever worn. And if you want to feel the same way that I feel about my underwear, well, then shop Skims Men at skims.com/lockedonnba in Skims stores. Let them know that we sent you. And after you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Again, that is skims.com, skims.com/lockedonnba, LOCKEDONNBA. It's the best underwear I've ever worn. If you want comfort, if you want style, if you want the right fit, Skims is the place. Skims for Men, the best underwear that I have ever worn. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star review. Leave a nice rating. Be a friend. Tell a friend. Also, Locked On Cavs now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage, delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com. Spencer, I do want to talk about Donovan Mitchell and the season that he is having, but Kenny Atkinson may be having a predicament for the very first time as head coach of the Cavs on Thursday night when they're in OKC taking on the Thunder. Do you know, before I tell you, because we did not discuss this earlier, do you know, before I say it, what that predicament could be?
Do I get a hint?
No.
Not at all. Okay.
Not at all.
Not even. Fire away. Yeah, not sure.
For the first time as head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Kenny Atkinson might have his full rotation available to him. Ty Jerome is questionable on the injury report, but there's not been a single game this year. Jerome questionable with an illness. He was in Indianapolis with the team. He was in the locker room after the game on Tuesday night. I saw him there, and he's questionable with an illness. He had been doubtful the previous 2 games, had not played. Of course, there has been an illness going around much of the NBA. Like, several teams have had guys miss time because of this illness that's going around. but he's been upgraded from doubtful to questionable. And that tells me that there's a pretty decent chance that he is available in this game. And Kenny Atkinson has consistently played 10 guys all year because he's not had all 11 guys that have played significant minutes available for any game at once. Like Max Strus came back the game after Isaac Okoro hit his shoulder, and Isaac Okoro comes back, but Sam Merrill is out, and then Sam Merrill comes back and Ty Jerome is sick. So there's always been one piece missing for the last couple of weeks, but I do think that there's a decent chance Thursday night is the first time that that's not the case, that all 11 guys that have played significant minutes for the Cavs could actually be available. My question that I'm looking at is, how is Kenny Atkinson going to handle this? Like, are we going to see that rotation go up from 10 to 11? Are we going to see somebody get cut out? What do you anticipate happening there if Ty Jerome can't play and the Cavs have a full rotation for the first time all year?
I think he ticks up still to 11 and everyone from that normal rotation plays. I just think that maybe one of the guards like Sam Merrill or Isaac Okoro just gets their time cut by like 3 or 4 minutes. That's probably the way I would look at it.
I could see both of them getting their minutes cut a little bit, but I'm with you.
But
I
still
do think
playing.
He's going to try and play 11. I think he's going to try and do that. I don't know how long that'll last. I think that's a really difficult thing to do, but I think he's going to try.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's just kind of how he's operated. We know we've talked about this and how he's kind of spread out the minutes, spread out the touches and all that stuff. But yeah, it's going to be tough with almost everybody, everybody healthy in this case, and to try and I think it's really going to be matchup based a lot of the times with this rotation and what your need is, right? Like you're going to want Isaac Okoro in this game to try and get some reps defensively on someone like a Jalen Williams or potentially a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Right.
Is Sam Merrill, if he's not making shots, would you have him sit in place of like Ty Jerome coming on the floor to have you, give you an extra ball handler? Like those are the things you have to think about in your mind. And that's why coaching is such an on the fly thing, because you have to react and adjust in real time to what's going on. Sam Merrill was not available the last time that the Cavs played the Thunder, by the way. He was dealing with the
he was the odd guy out. He was the odd man out because that was Isaac Okoro's first game back, I believe, from that shoulder injury.
Yep.
And he and Sam Merrill were both listed as questionable. We thought, okay, this might be the night. And Sam Merrill was unable to play in that game. And then obviously Donovan Mitchell rested against Toronto. And then Ty Jerome had an illness on Sunday night. So like it's been one guy missing. And I do wonder if the way Kenny's going to approach this is by playing 11 guys in the first half. And then, some minutes are going to be a little bit shorter. And it's kind of going to depend matchup based, kind of who plays well in the first half, as far as who from the bench bunch might not play in the second half. Like I do think that we could see 11 guys play in the first half and maybe 9 or 10 play in the second half.
Yeah, he's going to be playing Cavs musical chairs with the 2/3 spot. That's just how it's going to go, I think. I don't know if any of us can predict it because they have so much talent and so much depth that it's going to suck for somebody. But I think that he's going to try to get everybody in and get them at least some run. But it even could be like a case like, earlier in the year or whatever, when someone would be out, maybe it would be Ty Jerome, maybe it would be Karis LeVert or something like that. Craig Porter would play like 5 or 6 minutes and then not see action the rest of the game. I could see something like that, but for a Sam Merrill or for like an Isaac Okoro per se. Like I could see that type of minute load and that decrease, so to speak. But he's talked so highly of Sam Merrill that I'd be really surprised if he'd be the one to be the odd man out. Isaac he spoke highly of too, and using
He's
him.
Spoken highly of everybody, Spencer, because they're 34-5 and they're awesome and everyone has played well. Like
100%.
There haven't been negative things to say about anybody on the roster. They've all been really good.
Do you want to go through pros and cons of Isaac Okoro and Sam Merrill? Like, because I feel like Ty Jerome probably wins out between those three, and then you decide between Okoro and Merrill. It would be my guess, at least at this point.
Well, and I also think it's going to depend on, there are going to be some nights where you need extra ball handling. Like I do think that Kenny valued that in the game against OKC. He valued having Ty Jerome out there as an additional ball handler, and there are going to be other matchups where that might not be as necessary. So I do think that the rotation now, it's going to be set. There's probably going to be 9 guys that we see consistently get minutes every single night. And then I think for the other 3 spots or the other 2 spots or the other 2 guys, like it might rotate. And that's something that I do think is going to be interesting to follow along with. It's a big decision for Kenny Atkinson to have to make. I don't want to say that this is like his first test as head coach of the Cavs, because I think that's kind of ridiculous to think that, there haven't been tests along the way here, but it's going to be an interesting one to see how it plays out. I'm certainly going to have my eyes on it.
And it feels from the outside like it would be a delicate situation, but these guys all know what the goal is. They know that they're sacrificing for each other. They understand that there are things that they have to do better, and also just know that there's unfinished business. So I feel like whoever does get that odd man out feeling, whether it's 1 or 2 guys, that they'd be completely understanding and they would be cheering on the team and then just be ready for when their name is called, or if an injury happens, God forbid. Like, this is what an NBA season's about. This is why you have guys 1 through 17 on a roster. This is the point of all of this, is to be ready when your number's called. And, for the most part, I think this season, the Cavs have shown that they've had guys that have been ready for it. So.
And the last thing I'll say on this before we move on to Donovan Mitchell here, but I also think that this locker room is certainly strong enough to withstand somebody catching a DNP CD. I think that this locker room, the guys in that locker room, yes, we see you specifically, Spencer, putting out some of the joking around that goes on in that locker room. But I think when it comes to basketball, they're a very mature group and they all have one goal in mind. And I don't think that something like this would necessarily get in the way. I talked a little bit yesterday about what I think is one of the most impressive parts of Donovan Mitchell's season so far. We're going to discuss that a little bit more right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That's robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate. Claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Spencer, we haven't seen Donovan Mitchell do a ton by way of scoring this season, right? Like, I don't believe he's had a 40-point game yet. Now, Tuesday night was awesome, and I think a sight that a lot of Cavs fans wanted to see, where he was able to take over that game early with 19 first quarter points, finished with 35 points. But what have you made of what he's done so far this year?
It's just going back to what we were talking about earlier, man, sacrifice. This is a guy that's allowing and empowering guys like Darius, Garland, and Evan Mobley to grow and to develop on the floor in real time in situations where the Cavs need them to grow up and to develop. I think it's as simple as that. Whether it's passing them the ball, getting out of their way when something happens. Like, I think I saw something last night about Kenny Atkinson talking about Donovan going over to the side while Darius ISO'd someone and got by and got a nice little floater, something as simple as that.
It was, and I think the game was kind of decided by this point, but the play he was talking about in specific, he called it a go screen where Donovan sprints towards Darius's guy as if he's going to set a screen. And you saw, in Golden State's peak years with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, they ran this action a ton at the top of the key, where Klay Thompson never actually screened for Steph Curry's guy. Like, he never actually set a screen. He would run right by him and it would make the defender have to, hey, are we going to switch this? Like, it causes sometimes a lapse of communication, certainly a decision that has to be made. And that's what he was talking about. And it works so well. And Kenny basically talked about how it spoke to Donovan's selflessness. And I think that, to me, Spencer, the thing I've been most impressed by with Donovan has been his leadership this year. Like, he has taken a step back on the floor in terms of what he's being asked to do, not what he's capable of, but what he's being asked to do has changed. But what he's been doing off the floor, I think, has been the most impressive thing that he's done.
Yeah, he's fostered a really strong and together environment in the Cavs locker room. And this is something that's just continued over the years. This is something that, we saw this in the JB Bickerstaff era. I don't want anyone to like think that wasn't a thing, because like they've grown those relationships over the years they've been together. Karis LeVert talked about that at length after the Raptors game, just about how they've been together now for like 3-4 years. And it's just been a way for them to get to know each other off the court, which is translated to on the court. That stuff matters. It's not game of 2K. This is why chemistry is so important in the NBA, and allowing stuff to kind of play out rather than knee-jerk reaction right away, make a trade for one of the core guys that you brought in just a few years ago because it's not working at the time. Like, this is why it's so important. And then, you look at Donovan and how he's played a role in this. Like, we know how good Donovan Mitchell is. It's not like he has anything to prove to anybody. That includes the organization, that includes media, and that includes fans. Although some people want to have amnesia and forget that Donovan Mitchell is one of the most dynamic and dangerous scorers in the NBA. Yet, this is a situation where he hasn't been in a while, or probably ever in his career, where he's like, you know what? Let my backcourt partner get the shine. Let him get his confidence back. Let the 7-foot phenom on my team finally assert himself and look like the player that we see he is in practice, but in game situations. And he knows how good Jared Allen is. All he does is praise Jared Allen. So if those guys are playing well, that means that we're winning. And if we're winning, why do I care what my numbers are? And I think that's what he's looking at, and making winning plays, whether it's, getting into passing lanes, playing good defense, bodying up, getting rebounds, whatever the game requires at that time is what he's doing. So stats be damned. And I think that he understands that. And I think the team is really appreciative of him for it.
Yeah. And, we have seen specifically Evan Mobley take a huge step forward, a leap, dare I say. We've seen Darius Garland. I think it's fair to say at this point, I've always been somebody that's been very high on Darius Garland as a basketball player. I think it's fair to say he's playing the best basketball of his career. Like, I think he's a much better basketball player than he was the year he made the All-Star team. I think he's having a better season than his first year with Donovan Mitchell. And last year, I think it's just fair to wipe away. Like, I don't care what happened with Darius Garland last year on the floor. I can forget about it. It does not matter in the scope of Darius Garland's career. But I don't think that those things happen without Donovan Mitchell taking a step back. It's not because those guys would be any more or less capable of doing what they're doing, but I think that Donovan has kind of given them the opportunity to say, hey, over the last couple of years, we've been very good. And Donovan Mitchell has been a big reason why this team has been very good for the last 2 years. But they haven't been great for the last 2 years. They won 51 games and lost in the first round. Then they won 48 games. You can blame a lot of that on injury, sure, and they lost in the second round. Now, they are a finals favorite, and that doesn't happen without Donovan Mitchell's leadership. And I just think that he deserves a lot of credit for that, because it's not an easy thing to do when you're in the prime of your career. When you are 28 years old and on a Hall of Fame pathway, certainly as far as counting stats go, but you don't necessarily have the winning that's going along with it yet. I think it's easy for a star player, somebody as talented as Donovan, to say, I need to put my head down. I need to do more. I need to take us to where I want to get us. And instead, he's allowed his teammates to help lift up the team. And I think that just deserves a lot of credit.
It does. And you call it a step back. I kind of call it a step to the side, because it's not like he hasn't, produced. He has had games to do that. He's going to start the All-Star game and deserves to start the All-Star game. Sure. Yeah. I completely get where you're coming from, though. Like, the counting stats are not the same. The usage is not the same. Like, you look at some of this also is an adjustment to him, too, because you look at he's not finishing quite at the same rate at the rim. He's not getting as many of those straight line drives as we've been used to seeing. Sometimes he's taking more threes in games. It's not passive at all. It's just kind of trying to find his spot in the offense without being primary guy. And that's because Kenny's system is like, hey, everyone touches it. Everyone reverse the ball. Find your cutters. I think Donovan's passing has been elite this year. When you look at like some of the bullet feeds he's had, just eyes on the side and back of his head, getting it to guys in the corners. I think the outlet passes have been great. I think the one more passes he's been making to change a good shot into a great shot have been awesome. So yeah, it's just different. And you speak to being, appreciative of it, and also the guys in the locker room being appreciative of it. It's because that no one on the Cavs has an ego, and that's so rare in professional sports. It's rare in some college sports. Like, this is an environment
it's rare in sports at any level. It's rare in high school sports, Spencer.
Yeah. At this point, you're right. And that's why I think you cannot take it for granted. You cannot take it for granted at all. Like, it is special to see someone of that caliber, and also other guys on that team that are going to be that caliber, be able to be like, hey, this is about the team. This isn't about me.
Right. That's absolutely. And I think that has been the story of the season for the Cavs. It's not the only reason why they have the best record in basketball going into this matchup against OKC, but I certainly think it's a very big reason why. Spencer, thanks so much for doing this, man. Where can everyone find your stuff?
Yeah, no, I'm on Twitter and X at Spin Davies. Same thing on Instagram. I do stuff for Cavs on SI. We have our own YouTube channel where we post-game content, do post-game reaction live, and all sorts of other stuff over at si.com/NBA/Cavaliers. Also have a podcast called Courtside with Cavs on SI. Do that with Spencer German once a week, and we actually do that live, too, as well. So not only on YouTube, but also on Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. So make sure to subscribe, like, comment, rate, do all that good stuff. Other stuff that you were mentioning at the beginning of the show, I covered the NBA as a whole as well. Just did a couple features the last couple days. Did an interview with Mark Williams, one of the blossoming big men in Charlotte, and also talked to Ben Shepherd before his Pacers upset the Cavs, as we just talked about. Talked to him in the locker room before that game about how Indiana's defense has been really on a tear since the new year. So make sure to check those out at rg.org. Also have a big draft profile coming out on Babcock Hoops. Not going to tell you who, going to have to wait to reveal that information, but I'm sure you will enjoy it. So that's just a few of the things that I do, and I appreciate you having me on here, Danny.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate you, too, for making this your first listen every single day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Like I said earlier, give us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, be a friend, tell a friend, make sure you are subscribed, make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We'll be back after the OKC game.